Chapter 4 Trouble at the Lighthouse. The seagull then squawked loudly right in Chisel's face, and Chisel decided that before he was squawked at again, he'd better get up and find the lighthouse keeper. He started walking over to the lighthouse, and the seagull hopped on the lawn in front of Chisel, moving forward as though trying to lead him somewhere. Chisel followed. The seagull veered to the left toward a large garage. Chisel slid the garage door open, but it was still dark inside. He heard a voice in the back corner. "Who's there?" And before Chisel could answer, the voice added, "And what you doing there? And can you help me here? Now do you hear?" Chisel answered, "I am here, and yes, I hear. If I knew where, I'd help you there. It's Chisel. And who is the voice?" "Well, voices don't have names, of course. But the animal behind the voice is Pumpkin." "You mean pumpkin? Like the big orange things?" Chisel asked. "Now a pumpkin wouldn't be talking, would it? And I probably know my own name, don't you think?" At that moment, the seagull who was behind Chisel squawked loudly, and Chisel responded, "Okay, okay." He entered the garage and saw that he had been talking to an older-looking rat with gray hair. Pumpkin was sitting on the floor, and a huge tree had crashed through the ceiling and wall. "Hoot, Baloot, are you okay?" "Last night during the windstorm, this tree came crashing into the workshop and knocked me onto the floor," Pumpkin said. "I think I broke my hip." Chisel found a wheelbarrow and wheeled Pumpkin over to the first floor of the lighthouse where he lived. Meanwhile, the mean minks, who were now walking down the beach trail, stopped when they saw a fat bobcat leaning against a tree and groaning. "Have you seen a hedgehog?" Bobcat just pointed toward the beach, still too full to respond. Pumpkin suggested tuna fish sandwiches for lunch, and Chisel said, "How about we add some peanut butter to make them extra good?" They talked as they ate, and then Chisel built him some crutches to get around with while his hip healed. Then Chisel told him all about his planned trip to Volcano Island. Pumpkin shuddered when he heard it and said, "I was sailing close to the island one day, and there were monkeys out on the beach, shrieking and shaking and showing their teeth, ready to attack me if I went ashore. And then that volcano erupted, rumbling and shaking and smoking terribly. Don't go there." Chisel squinted, folded his arms, and thought, and then said, "Volcano Island is my quest, and that is where I'll go." Pumpkin then said that he could use his sailboat, so they loaded it with all the necessary equipment needed for an early start the next morning, including a super-duper squirt gun that Pumpkin gave Chisel for protection against the monkeys. Chisel then took the boat for a practice run. That night, after Chisel and Pumpkin ate dinner, there was a knock at the door. Chisel answered and saw a nicely dressed animal with a hat pulled down low on his head, wearing glasses and holding a briefcase. His 3 mean mink brothers smiled as they hid in the bushes. The animal then started telling Chisel it was good to find him, and that Chisel's great uncle had died and left him a lot of money. "Please come out to the bushes, and I will show you what is in my briefcase," the animal said. As he was talking, Chisel's smile slowly straightened as he carefully studied the animal. Chisel did not have a great uncle, and this animal reminded him of someone. But who? As Chisel stepped out of the front door, he imagined the animal's face without the glasses. He took another step and imagined him without the hat. The image now in his mind was... His eyes popped open and a memory flashed through his mind about that thing that happened back then, and the words escaped from his mouth, "Mean mink!" The mean mink brother grabbed for him, but Chisel ducked, and the mink's arms went around thin air and then back around himself. The brothers all jumped up, and one yelled to the one by Chisel, "Quit hugging yourself and grab him!" Chisel started running, and all 4 minks followed. He ran around the lighthouse 2 times with the minks getting closer and closer. After the second time around, one of the minks stopped and ran in the opposite direction. When Chisel came around the lighthouse again and saw the mink running toward him, Chisel had to turn and run across the lawn looking for somewhere to hide. But there was no place to go. If he turned right or left, the minks would catch him. He kept running straight, approaching the cliff. What to do? Where to go? He thought. When the cliff was only 5 feet away, he knew what he had to do and where to go. And with a lunge, he threw himself into the air 50 feet above the sea below. The mink screeched to a halt and watched Chisel hurl through the air toward the water. He did a somersault in the air, raised one knee, put his hands around it, and did a perfect cannonball splash into the water, sending a small tidal wave in all directions. The minks were awestruck. "Aw, he's good," one of them said. "There's some stairs, let's go," another yelled. As they got to the beach, Chisel was just climbing onto the boat dock. As he saw the minks running toward him, he flung himself into the sailboat, untied it, and lifted the sail. By then the minks were sprinting and almost to the dock. As the sail filled with wind, the boat slowly started gliding out to sea. Chisel looked behind him and saw 2 minks about to jump off the dock toward him. Chisel turned back and started fanning the sail with both hands and looked behind him again. 2 minks had jumped and were now gliding toward him in the air, and the other 2 were just jumping off the dock. Chisel started puffing on the sail in hard, quick blows. The next time he looked back, the closest mink was still flying toward him and reaching with one hand as far as he could until finally falling just short of the boat with his fingertips barely brushing the end of it and splashing into the sea. The boat was sailing a little faster than the mink could swim, and within a couple of minutes the sound of hectic splashing behind the boat had faded into dark silence. Chisel's heart took several minutes to calm. He sat still, staring into the dark as the boat was pulled out to sea. He sailed for half an hour and then said quietly to himself, "I guess I'm in trouble. Any clues that are out there, please come my way, and make it fast. I need to solve a mystery." Chisel knew that solving the mystery might be the only thing that would save him. Then, it being too dark to sail, he took down the sail, snuggled with a blanket down in the bottom of the boat, and lay looking up at the stars. As he lay, he thought about his situation and what happened 4 days earlier that forced him on this journey, running for his life to Volcano Island.